When you consider to start coffee roasting at home, you might be overwhelmed by the question on what you actually need for that. And this is why in this video, I will tell you exactly what you need and what is optional, so that at the end of the video, you know exactly how you can start your coffee roasting venture. I'm Ingo from Roast Rebels, and now let's go. So you're thinking about starting to roast coffee at home, and you have maybe checked a little bit on the internet, looked around what you need, and you might be a little bit confused by all the options and the opinions around there. And this is why I will give you now a step-by-step recommendation on what equipment or tools there are out there and what of them you really need and which one of them are optional. The first thing that we are going to start with, and this is of course absolutely mandatory and the most important thing at all, are green coffee beans. Of course, without green coffee beans, you cannot roast coffee. You will see they look like little grains, they're green, they're hard, and they are actually the natural product that is made on the coffee farms around the world and will then be the products that you're going to roast. And when starting roasting, this is really not only, of course, the important thing, but it's also the thing where I would recommend you to invest the most time, the most consideration, because the difference in green coffee beans is so overwhelming. You will realize that there are green coffee beans or there are coffees that taste fruity, acidic, floral, or chocolatey, nutty, round, bold. So by the choice of the right green coffee bean for your individual taste and your taste preferences, you will then really influence the coffee that you get out of it. And the choice of green coffee beans, as well as in relation to that also how light or dark you roast them, is just the factor that influences the taste in your cup the most. And it's even more important than at the end which exactly equipment you're going to choose, which exactly roast profile you're going to choose, and all the things that are coming with this. So invest the most of energy and time. I know we all love equipment, we all love tools, we like technology and all that, but invest the most of your time in thinking about trying and test different green coffee beans, and also be ready to invest some money into trying different green coffee beans, because really you are going to take coffees or buy coffees or try coffees that you are going to love, and you are going to try coffees that you are not going to like at all, but that's just the venture that you are going into when starting roasting coffee at home. Now you might ask yourself, where can I get green coffee beans? And what's on one hand is that there are a lot of online shops that are selling green coffee beans. I can now only talk for Europe, but you will quickly find a lot of online shops there, and also groups like, for example, Kaffelogic in Germany. There are boards also in the other countries where you then find sometimes lists, or by Googling, you find easily 30 or more like companies that are offering green coffee beans. All of them have a little bit of different then positionings. Some are offering really delicate specialty green coffee beans. Some are more like on the conventional side. We also are selling green coffee beans in 1 kilo bag, 5 kilo bag like this, and 15 kilo bags for people that then are start to sell coffees. The Roast Rebels strategy or offering is to have quite a broad assortment to give people the possibility to approach and get into roasting coffee at home. So we have more conventional classic beans, but then also some really delicate specialty beans. We try to offer the whole range. And as said, if you're going to Google and look out and go to coffee boards, you will find a lot of companies that are offering green coffee beans. In addition to that, you can also ask a roastery, a smaller roastery in your region. I would say it's about 50-50. Some roasteries are then also offering green coffee beans. Some don't, but just go and ask them. And I would say like it's a bit a 50-50 chance that they are also giving you the beans as green coffee beans. Second thing you need is a device where you roast your coffee in. There are quite a lot of options on small coffee roasting machines in the market. I'm going to talk about this quite in a second. But you can also, if you don't yet want to invest in an equipment like this and just try it out, use some equipment that you might have at home. There are quite some people who are trying to roast coffee in a pan or in the oven. I don't really like these ways of roasting coffee because, like, especially in the oven, the roasting is a bit too long. Coffee might be baked. When you are roasting in a pan or in any other device or tool where you have then direct contact to a hot, like a metal or steel or plate, you are getting into the risk of scorching, so burning your beans on one side and then still have them underdeveloped green on the other side. It's important that coffee is being moved all the time and that is going to be roasted evenly from the inside to the outside and also all around the beans. And if you don't use a coffee roasting machine, because coffee roasting machines are perfectly made for this. If you want to use another tool, then usually tools that are roasting with hot air are right there. One thing that a lot of people are doing to start roasting, to get into roasting, is they're working with popcorn machines or they're also working with air fryers. And if you look out there in coffee boards, in communities, you'll find a lot of people who are sharing their experiences on which popcorn machine or which air fryer is going to work. And then sometimes they're also modulating them, putting thermocouples in them, or use then devices to influence and to control the heat a little bit more. So there is a lot out there on this kind of tools. And if you don't want to invest a lot of money, I would just recommend you to give it a try. And then you have your first roasted coffee that you did yourself at home. If you want to dive a little bit deeper and have more precision and more influence on the roasting profiles, then I would recommend you to have a look at the different roasting machines that are out there. I have also made a video where I'm showing different coffee roasting machines right here. And there are different machines for the different needs for people. But one machine that I am very confident in recommending most of the people out there that want to get into home roasting is the Kaffelogic Nano 7. It comes also with a chef collector here. This machine is extremely simple to use. You have roasting profiles that are coming with the machine that are really on a very, very high level. People have won a lot of competitions with coffee roasted on this machine. And you can then, by the press of a button, automatically roast beautiful coffee. But if you want to dive deeper, it's an open system and you have the possibility to adapt roasting profiles to your liking and then really getting into roasting profiling and try different beans, try different roasts. So this is really a machine that is reliable, consistent, and is really helping you to start coffee roasting and then even go very deep into fine-tuning your profile as an option. On the Kaffelogic Nano 7, I even produced a comprehensive 3.5-hour online course where we explain everything about the machine, but also coffee roasting, sensory, green coffee beans, so that even if you have no previous experience or knowledge about coffee roasting, you will be able to roast beautiful coffee on it. And if you get the machine from us, then you get it for free. Otherwise, if you have the machine or if you, for example, outside of Europe, get it from somewhere else, then you can buy the course. You find a lot of information about it right here. After you have roasted your coffee, you might know that you need to let the coffee rest for a couple of days. You need to store that and also in bags or tins. I can recommend you, for example, a tin like these coffee bag tins, or then we have bags. Usually you get coffee bags with a little valve here because the coffee is going to degas, so it's going to release CO2. And you need to give the coffee the time to release the CO2 because taste is going to be better. On the other hand, then coffee must not oxidate because then it would lose taste. Therefore, these bags with these valves are super nice, or a couple of coffee tins because most probably you're going to roast a couple of different coffees. When you have roasted your coffee, you want to do quality control. You want to compare the coffees in order to find out which beans is the one that you like most, which roasting profile is the one that you like most, or also which roast level. So you have to compare the beans really fairly, and you might realize that the way you're extracting coffee is really influencing the taste, especially if you're using an espresso machine, but also if you do filter brewing or so. And this is why for cupping or for tasting coffee after roasting, there is really a standardized process. You will find it if you Google for cupping protocol CQI, which is the Coffee Quality Institute, or SCA, which is the Specialty Coffee Association. Also, if you get the machine from us, We will have a chapter in the online course where I explain it very in detail. At the end, it's like you're preparing the samples a bit like a soup. You put about 12 grams of coffee, quite coarse, take 200 grams of water, temperature of 93 or 94 degrees Celsius, and then you let it rest for 4 minutes, break the crust, cup the coffee, and you do it always the same so that you have no influence on the extraction and you have really a fair comparison of the coffee samples. And for that, you need to have cups that are all the same. So you need to have, let's say, 3 or 4, depending a little bit on how many coffees you want to compare side by side, cups that are of the same size and same shape. If you want to invest then in professional equipment or like the things that we are using in coffee roasteries or as green coffee traders are those standardized cupping bowls. You will find them on the internet. So they are then all the same. They are made from their shape and their size perfectly for cupping. But as said, you can also start with just cups that you have at home, as they just have to be really the same size so that the extraction is always the same. Also here then for cupping, we often use these cupping spoons. They are then beautifully to take the coffee and slurp it, but you can also then just take any spoon that you have at home. And to prepare the cupping, you need to make sure that the temperature of the water is always the same. And what I like to take is just like a kettle that I use for coffee brewing. It's one where I can control the temperature. It has this, this shape which I can pour the cups really beautifully. So that's perfect for cupping coffee. But if you don't have a kettle like this at home, just a standard kettle, then you can actually just take any water kettle. Just make sure that the water temperature is always the same so that you have a good comparison. And then one thing is also the grinder, because you will have then small amounts of coffee, so let's say about 12 grams, you need to grind them, and therefore a standard, for example, espresso grinder is always not really perfect because there will be quite a lot of coffee that is remaining in the grinder. So if you have this, then it's really perfect to use a single dose grinder where you can just put single doses in it and then ground these small amounts of coffee for that. Or if you don't have one, you can also then just take a manual hand grinder. There are quite affordable options in the market meanwhile. So take a manual coffee grinder with which you can then really grind these 12 grams, for example, of coffee that you are going to take to prepare your cupping. One thing that is optional that you don't need at the beginning, but maybe a bit at a later stage, are tools that are improving your consistency in roasting, especially if you're roasting them for others or if you're selling coffee, then it's super important that your coffee roasts are consistent, because if some other people are taking your coffee and they always have to adapt the grinder, that's going to be a little bit of a hassle for them. And if coffee is then under-extracted or over-extracted because it has been roasted a bit differently, will make them quite unhappy. So in a later stage, you might start to work on this, on quality control and consistency. And therefore, you will find a lot of tools out there. I will now explain you some ways that you can start with without paying any money. And then later, I will also show you some tools that are around if you want to get a little bit more into the technical side of it. So there are 3 factors that I would recommend you to have a look at. First thing, and that is quite important, actually it's the most important thing when it comes to checking the quality of your roasts, is tracking the color of your roasted coffee, because the color of your roasted coffee is really the factor that influences the taste most when it comes to the roasting. And therefore, you can actually then start with visually looking at the color of your beans or have samples or little comparisons. So you can start collecting then samples of your roasted coffee in little bags so that you can compare this. One thing I would recommend you is to always measure the amount, like the weight of the coffee beans that you are putting into your roaster and that you are taking out of your roaster. So just need then a simple scale that is quite precise on 0.1 grams. You will most probably have one of these at home anyway if you're a coffee nerd. Otherwise, these kind of scales are quite cheap to buy somewhere. And by measuring the amount of coffee that you're putting in the roaster and taking out of the roaster, you can then track the weight loss in percentage. So you calculate the difference, how much grams the coffee have lost, then divide it to the amount of coffee you have put in the machine, and then you know how many percentage was the weight loss. So let's say 12%, 12.5%, 13%. And this is actually correlating really well with the color of your roasted coffee. So this is giving you a really well indication on how you have developed your coffee without paying anything for an equipment, and you get quite good information about it. If you want then to be a little bit more professional, you can start with measuring the color of your roasted coffee. There are meanwhile also cheaper options like the coffee meter tools, for example, from DyeFluid. They are really affordable and very consistent and helpful in tracking the color of your roasted coffee. So then you have then a really precise indicator in an Actron scale, we call that, so that you can track your coffee roasts. Then two other things are density and moisture content of your green coffee beans. Especially density is super important to track because it will influence the way you're going to roast your coffee. Moisture is also influencing the way you're roasting, but it's especially important then for quality control of your green coffee beans and check how well you have stored them. So moisture is maybe not the first thing you need to track as a coffee roaster. This is a little bit later, but density is something that I would really recommend you to keep track of. And you can then really start measuring the density by taking a cup where you know exactly the volume that is in it. So let's say, for example, this has 250 milliliters in it, if you would fill it with water. And then you take this cup, put in green coffee beans until the top, take out the beans on the top so that it's even, and then you measure how many grams of green coffee beans you have put inside, and you get a good tracking on the density. I have a very detailed video where we talk about density right here. But also then for density or moisture content, there are quite a lot of measurement tools out there. The coffee meters, again, are really affordable. They are really doing their job. They are consistent. They are really working well. So this is a tool that I could then really recommend you like a little bit in a later stage. You don't need it when you start, but a bit later, and especially if you want to start selling your beans or roasting for others, then it really makes sense to start working with these kind of tools. One thing you need to consider is when roasting coffee, you're going to produce smoke. And the amount of smoke you're going to produce is related to the batch size that you're roasting. So if you're roasting 100 grams, then you're producing much less smoke than if you're roasting 1 kilo. And also how light or dark you're roasting. If you have lighter roast, you have less smoke than if you have darker roasts. It's super important that you're always in a really well-vented condition or surrounding where you get fresh air, but also you want to bring out the smoke from your room. If you're working with a machine like the Kaffelogic Nano 7, for example, usually you will be really well with the kitchen vents that is going to take out the smoke usually really well, depending on how strong it is. And if you're roasting a bit bigger batches, or if you have a machine that is roasting bigger batch sizes, is producing more smoke, then you might want to install a venting system. Usually these venting systems are not super complicated to make. You can then use tubes to bring out the smoke, either passively if it's not a really long distance, or actively by putting a little vent inside of the tubes that is then actively taking out the smoke from your room. Or there are also then, meanwhile, some small catalyzers in the market. You'll find here, for example, a video on the DyeFluid Airwave, which is such a tool. I hope this video was helpful for you. And by the way, we just launched a home roaster starter kit where you get everything that you need to start your roasting coffee at home: green coffee beans, a machine, also the online course. If this is of interest to you, then have a look at the link right here. We're also going to put the link in the bio. And beside of that, if you're interested in roasting, you might have a look at the other videos in our channel as well. Subscribe to our channel because we're releasing videos about once a week where we talk about coffee roasting. And if you have any particular question, then always come back to me. You find my contact on roastrebels.com.